Are you aware about this non-financial reporting? What do you know about it? So we all talk about as accountants, mainly on the financial reporting. So what do you know about the non-financial reporting? Are companies reporting non-financial reporting? Or are they reporting only about the financial results? Since you are attached to, most of you are attached to the companies. So what have you seen? Have you seen the annual report of a company? So what does it usually include? Sorry? Financial results. So what else? What else? Is it only the financial information? Yes, some of the companies, they are providing only the financial information. So have you seen some of these well-recognized listed companies' annual reports? Like the companies which awarded as best annual reports in our CA, the annual report awards competition. Have you gone through any of those? Sorry? CSR reporting. So is there accounting, not the accounting, are there any standards they use in this non-financial reporting? Sorry? Sorry? Theme. Yes. So there's a theme some of the companies are having, accordingly they are making some disclosures. So are they using for this non-financial reporting any particular standard? S1. Yeah. So there's a new standards coming in which is called IFRS S1 and S2, which was recently adopted. So I'm going to talk about that. So apart from that, have you seen any other frameworks what the companies have used? Any other framework? Have you heard about GRI? That is there in this, I think the corporate level financial reporting, this course manual or the study text, if you read, these are there, which is called GRI standards, which again used for non-financial reporting, for the sustainability reporting. So have you heard about this integrated reporting framework? Yes. So that is also a framework which companies using for non-financial information. And also apart from these, sometimes certain disclosures in the annual reports are coming through various other regulations. Maybe listed companies should follow the listing rules of the Colombo Stock Exchange, which requires the companies to disclose various information in their annual report. So they ask them to provide certain information about the composition of the board of directors, the activities of each committees of the board, which is called corporate governance related disclosures. So those are coming through. Then the institute also published a code of best practices of corporate governance. So that is also have certain disclosure requirements which are there in the annual report. So annual report, if you see nowadays for well-recognized companies, it is not only about the financial results, but also larger portion was allocated for non-financial information as well. So these are coming through various frameworks. So recently, the Institute of Chartered Accountants also issued this SLFRS S1 and S2, which are called Sustainability Disclosure Standards, to provide the sustainability information of the company in the annual report. So that is the major area which I am going to talk on. Right. So now, so some of you are aware, so at least please read a good annual report after today's discussion. Then you will know what are the information which is going to be there in the annual report. Because this is a must. Because we as the accountants, we should know at least the annual report. What does it include? Because you will get the responsibility one day to lead this annual report writing part for the company. Because mostly this annual report writing part, compilation parts, those are driven by the finance team. So you might be allocated for those and you will get that responsibility. So you have to be ready with the related know-how. right? Okay. So now we are coming to this sustainability, right? So when we are saying sustainability, so what's coming into your mind? What kind of topics? Sustainability. So you should answer. So if I say sustainability, what kind of topics are coming to your mind? If I say sustainability, what's coming into your mind? Nothing? What usually includes under sustainability? No. Any answers? Sustainability? So have you learned anything about sustainability? I think in the schools we are having these sort of subjects, course units, we are learning about these things. Sure, you have learned. So what are the topics usually coming under sustainability? Any guesses? Sustainability? No guesses. Can you name few topics at least coming under sustainability? So you have seen sustainability report, no? You stored. So what are the areas usually they are covering? Can't remember. So under sustainability, what are the areas usually covering?
Environment.
Yes, environment is part of that, right? So finally I got one answer. What else? Social aspect. That means about what? Sorry? Cultural activities. Okay. So what else? Social aspect? Governance. Yes. So the governance related aspects are covering. So it has a wider set of topics. So these are coming under sustainability. It has an environmental elements, social elements, as well as a government. Now, environment, we are having climate change. Now, this S2 standard, which I told, SLFR's S2, is on climate change. Then we are having the greenhouse gas emission. Then biodiversity, air, water, land, resource use. So all are connecting to the environment. Then social aspect, we are having the most predominant resources for a company, which is called what is? The human capital, the own employees of the organization. If you go through the annual reports of a good company, they talked about this and how they have treated their employees, what activities they have undertaken, the training activities, the welfare activities, then how the recruitments have done, how they have maintained the gender equality. So all these information are there in their annual report. So that is about the human capital. Then employee conflicts, workforce relations, employee standards, so all are there part of the social aspect. Then the governance. So in the annual report, we are having the board composition, the compliances, the risk management, etc., which is coming as a governance element. So all together, all of these, the combination of environment, social, and the governance, we can term them as ESG, if not sustainability. So the sustainability disclosures or the non-financial disclosures are talking about all of these aspects. It's beyond the financial results. Why this information is there? Because the investors of the company, the lenders of the companies, demanding this information to be there in their annual report. So that's why the demand for these non-financial disclosures came. So this has generated new job roles as well. Because now most of these listed companies are having a separate sustainability team who's working on these activities. And they are getting the consultant support for the improvements. So that again generated various activities. And also these people who are in the BPO sector can also contribute for this non-financial reporting. Currently, you might be highly keen on the financial reporting task, but one day you will be assigning for this non-financial reporting task as well, because to that extent the investors are demanding this information. So you should have to be thorough with the knowledge about this non-financial reporting, because then you can differentiate from the others and you can find new job opportunities, new job roles through that. And also, if you are going to the senior management of the company, if you are going to head the finance division, definitely you should have the skills or the knowledge about the ESG and the sustainability. So that's why this new curriculum development, also the education division has thoroughly considered about the sustainability aspect, and they have considered this is the sustainability is part and parcel of the chartered accountancy education. So that's linked to not only the financial reporting, every subject now linked to the sustainability aspect as well. So when you are learning about in the future or the next syllabus about the financial reporting subjects or the financial management, auditing, risk management, so all are linked with this area called ESG. So that's why you need that skill, right? So these are the topics which usually come. Now, the globally or at the Sri Lankan level even, now the businesses, the risks for the businesses going to face are changing. Because nowadays the people are thinking about the price. If we think about even the government organization, even our government, they are giving the key priority on the to address the issues on the usual concerns coming on the public about the cost of living. So that's the most of the number one topic which the organizations have to face. Maybe pressure is coming for the companies also to increase the salaries, that is to address this cost of living crisis. So everyone is talking about that particular aspect. But 10 years time, it was found based on this as a global risk perception survey, the number one risk which the businesses have to face is failure to mitigate the climate change. So climate change will become the number one challenge which the businesses have to face. Because now the weather patterns are changing, the people cannot get the usual, the seasons, the harvest, the yield is becoming lower, and also the businesses are having this, has to face these flood situations, which again having increase of the insurance cost, the insurance premiums are going to increase. So a lot of issues are coming in. Even nowadays we are facing those things. The same thing will be continue, and even more after 10 years time, this will become the number one challenge which the businesses has to face. So then in our annual reports, the investors are expecting to have some disclosures how we have been impacted, or whether we are expecting any impacts through this climate change, and what are the actions we have already taken or we are going to take. So that disclosures have to be there in the annual report, and the investors are expecting. So that's why these sustainability disclosure standards came in and mandated the company to disclose about the impact from the climate and what the actions the companies have taken. So that's all about this SLFRS S2 is talking about. Because that will become the number one challenge. We cannot wait until the 10th year. Now onwards, we have to be ready to face for that situation. So that's why these standards were introduced. And also the second risk will be failure of climate change, adaptation, natural disasters, biodiversity loss. So a lot of issues are coming in. And also large scale involuntary migration. So that also become the fifth issue. So now most of the migrations, the underlying reason is what? People are migrating for what purposes? Maybe to get new jobs, to have a good decent lifestyle. So that's the reason, backed by the cost of living most of the cases. But after this 10 years time, this migration is happening not because of the cost of living, that is happening because of the climate change. Because people cannot live in certain areas, so they will have to migrate into some other areas. So these migrations are happening because of the climate change situations, not because of the cost of living, which is happening nowadays. So that's why it's so important to talk about this environmental aspect. So that's why the separate standard called SLFRS S2 was introduced. So this standard is part and parcel of your syllabus as well. So in the corporate level, strategic level, you will have these course units on the sustainability reporting in detail. So you can get some insights today discussion, but you will learn more while you study those course units. Right. Then impacts of sustainability to the company, we can analyze based on these factors. What are those factors? But how we can abbreviate it and tell? What factors are these? PESTEL. So based on the PESTEL, we can link the sustainability impact. Number one, the political. ESG issues are a big factor in political debates and policy making. Can you give one example? How the political involvement and the sustainability? Can you give one example how the governments have involved in the sustainability? Sorry? Tax. Yeah, certain countries, they have given tax benefits for people who are taking some initiatives in terms of the sustainability. Yeah. So what else? Yeah, what kind of policies?
They have to fix some policies, and the companies have to publish some disclosures about the environment protection.
Some of the policies, maybe some acts are coming in. Already we are having some environment protection acts. The companies have to comply. So what else politically you can see? Anything? Have you heard about this Paris Agreement? Has anyone heard about the Paris Agreement? Where the Paris is located? Where? France. Yeah. So what is this Paris Agreement? Does anyone know about the Paris Agreement? What is Paris Agreement? Anyone? Any guesses? Paris Agreement? Paris Agreement? No. That was signed in year 2015. The Paris Agreement was signed in year 2015 by 196 countries, including Sri Lanka. They have given commitments, international commitments, even the Sri Lankan government has given. What are those commitments? The Sri Lankan government has given a commitment by 2030, the Sri Lanka will achieve a target. The 70% of the energy generation of the country will be renewable energy, through the renewable energy. By 2030, Sri Lanka electricity generation, the 70% will be sourced by the renewable energy sources. So that is one commitment the government has given. The second one is by 2050, Sri Lanka will agree to have the carbon neutrality level. So carbon emission will be neutralized. So Sri Lanka has committed to the transport sectors. The government will promote the electric vehicles. The tourism will become more sustainable. So likewise, a lot of commitments have been given under this agreement. So that's the government has to do. This is an international agreement. So Ministry of Environment has put a roadmap for that. But still we cannot see much actions are taking place. So because of that, very recently, some of people went to Supreme Court and filed a case against the government, saying fundamental rights of the people are violated because government is not taking any actions to address these commitments given under Paris Agreement to protect the environment. So Supreme Court accepted that file. Now they are going to have a hearing on that. So these people are now fighting because the government had to take actions, because we haven't seen much discussions are happening on this one, because 2030 is in another 5 years time. So we cannot achieve 70% by within a day. It requires a lot of investments, right? Then 2050 which is after another 25 years time, which Sri Lanka going to have carbon neutrality. So likewise, not only Sri Lanka, the rest of the other countries in the world have also given this commitment. So I said about 196 countries agreed. But one country is not within this particular agreement. What is that country? Which country is not part of the Paris Agreement now? Which country? Which country is not part of the Paris Agreement? Any guesses? They were part of initially, but now they are not. Which country? Sri Lanka is part of which country? Any guesses? Any guesses? Yes, US. So US was initially part of this agreement. Then who is now the US president? What's the name of the US president? Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was the president in his first term. So they decided to exit from this agreement. So they exit. Then after the Donald Trump, a new president was appointed. Who's that? Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, one of the very first tasks which he has taken was to re-enter into the Paris Agreement. Then again this election was happened, the Donald Trump won, and one of the very first executive orders he has signed was to exit again from the Paris Agreement. So US is not part of that. But we are part of this one, right? So we have to be part of that. So that's the politically, this is not nowadays the people are discussing, but people will discuss this one. Even some of the countries, they put those into certain legislations. In countries like UK, they are having a separate climate change act. So these commitments put it into the legislations. So it's mandated. Then from the economical, new aspects of sustainable finance are disrupting the financial markets. What are those? New aspects of the financial disrupting the financial market. Have you heard about green bonds? Have you heard about green bonds? No. What is a bond? What is a bond or a debenture? Is it equity instrument or a debt instrument? What is a bond? Is it equity or debt? Bond? Debt instrument, okay. So what is a green bond? Can you guess what is a green bond? What is green? What is green is about? Green can what? environment. So what is a green bond? So the companies are issuing debentures, they are promising their investors they will utilize this whole funding for environmental related projects. Do we have green bonds? Any of Sri Lankan companies issued the green bond? Any company in Sri Lanka issued a green bond? No? Don't know. Any company in Sri Lanka issued a green bond? Any company? So a lot of questions are asking. No? Can you name? Is there anyone who is working in the banking industry? I'm sure no one will raise the hands. So which companies? Who issued the very first green bond? So if let's say one of you went to the Lakshapati program and you said you are a chartered accountant and one of the very first questions came, maybe the number one, maybe on who issued the very first green bond. So at least you should know what is a green bond is first, right? So who issued the very first green bond? No. Any guesses? It's a listed company. Who issued the very first green bond? Yes, DFCC Bank. So finally we got the answer. So the DFCC Bank issued the very first green bond in Sri Lanka. What was the second one? Alliance Finance. Yes. Alliance Finance did the second one. Alliance Finance issued the second green bond. And the fourth also very recently issued by another bank. Which bank? Commercial Bank. So the Commercial Bank issued the very recent green bond. And also HNB Bank also expressed they are working on a green bond. Right? So a lot of these companies are working. So the investors has to invest on these green projects. Then there's another category introduced by Colombo Stock Exchange which is called social bond. Social bond means that we are raising funds through the issuance and spending those on social projects. So far only one company issued a social bond. What is that company? So people who might be interested in Colombo Stock Exchange might be investing. Do you know? Do you know? Who issued the social bond? That was Alliance Finance. Alliance Finance issued the very first social bond. That was very, very recent. Which we were also part of that as the assurance provider. The Deloitte was part of that. I led that engagement. So the Alliance Finance issued the very first green social bond. They already issued a green bond, and this is the social bond. Also, there's another category called sustainability bonds that they are spending on environment, social, both. So some of the companies still they not issued, but certain companies are working on that. Then there's another category called blue bonds. Blue bond is for marine resources, the sea protection and etc. Which DFCC Bank announced they are working on a blue bond also, right? Then that is not there in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Some of the people are discussing about orange bond. So different colors are coming. The orange bond is about the women empowerment. So that again having a category, because these things are coming in. These different categories which are disrupting the financial market, which people expected only the financial return earlier. Now they are thinking more than that. They are thinking about the externalities coming in and all. Which cause these bonds are coming in, which all together in the Colombo Stock Exchange we say those as GSS plus bonds. So that is how these issuances are happening. So as the people who are learning these chartered accountancy courses, you should at least read the newspapers, right? At least the headlines. So at least go and search this Colombo Stock Exchange website. You might not be interested in investing that, but at least go and to know, because you will become these finance managers, auditors one day. Then you should know these, right? So these are some sort of a common knowledge that every accountant should have, right? Then social. Society already expect companies to be sensitive to the climate issue. So that's why whenever these climate issues are coming in, people are challenging in the court. They are filing cases against these companies who are not sustainable and who are having these practices. Then the legal. ESG requirements are reshaped in legislation. So that is put it into the legislation. Now this S1 and S2, every listed company should have to report on those, because Colombo Stock Exchange, through its listing rules, they have mandated the companies to report the sustainability disclosures. So that's the legislations are coming in. Then environment obviously there, because that is part and parcel. The technology. A lot of technological developments are happening to address these issues which are coming through unsustainable practices, right? So people are going from manual work to more automated work because of these things, right? So that's how these special activities are coming in. Now this might be related for your strategic management sort of questions, because earlier we might have not that much given the consideration on these factors, but now it's linking with the ESG, right? So any questions? Any questions? So now who issued the very first green bond? Yeah, which company? DFCC Bank. Okay.
You have mentioned about
Yeah, sure.
So you have mentioned about those two bonds,
Yeah.
green and the
Social.
bond. So usually we buy bonds to get interest. So how does the companies plan to collect or provide interest for those bondholders at the time periods?
This is also again having the interest is there. So in the matured market, usually there's a compensation coming in which is called greenium, which is usually the rates might be a little lower. But Sri Lanka, that does not happen because it's still the market is not matured enough. So that is having some sort of a portion which the company is also giving up. The investors are also giving up while getting the interest, which is called the greenium, which is we cannot see largely in the Sri Lankan market because the market is not mature because we are having only 3 or 4, which is also came in the last year, right? So that's how, but it is also subjected to the interest and also to get the investors protection, that is to investors should ensure that the funds are utilizing for the desired projects. So every year until this the funds has been dispersed, the assurance has to be taken by the third party. So that's why we are providing these assurances for these issuances of the audit firms. So these are the interesting subject which if you go to the CSC, it has these prospectus which was released by these entities. You can see, and there should be a framework they have to put, like how they are utilizing the money, which is based on another standard which is called ICMA. Based on the ICMA standards, they have to formulate a framework and they have to get the assurance done at the time of issuance that framework is complying with the standard. So those things are there. So this is a good area which you can learn, right? So who issued the first social bond? Alliance Finance. So at least know if you go to Lakshapati program and if someone asks, then you know at least, right? Okay, fine. Or else you have to get the call a friend ask and to assign it to me. Right. And that is about sustainability. Now we are coming into the reporting. Now we as accountants, we are going to report these things in the annual report. Right. Once we report, we will audit also. Because I am coming from audit firm. Right. So sustainability reporting again, This reporting was mandated by some of these regulators. In Sri Lanka, I said the Colombo Stock Exchange, through their listing rules, they mandated the companies to comply with S1, S2, these standards. Right? And also in the European Union, they issued the sustainability reporting standards. This which is called this CSRD is through that the some of the companies who are exporting to that particular market, and if they generate sort of income, let's say Sri Lankan companies exporting to the European market, they have given some threshold. If they are meeting that threshold, then that company will report about the environmental aspect, social aspect. So otherwise they cannot enter into that market. So that was mandated. And also this reporting requires to report about your entire value chain. So from your suppliers to customers, your entire value chain related reporting is there in certain aspects. Which, let's say a Sri Lankan company is a supplier to a European market, one of the ultimate sort of a retail company, then for that company should report at the European market, but they need to get some information from a Sri Lankan company because they are considering about entire value chain. So that extent this was expanded, so the regulators are demanding for these things. Then the investors. So investors are also looking into these sustainability related products. Even these institutional investors like insurance funds and all, the unit trust, they have highly interested about investing those. So these every green bond issuance, social bond issuance in Sri Lanka was oversubscribed at the very first day because people, the investors are interested in investing those. Then the corporations, the 98% of companies in Asia Pacific expect climate change to impact their company strategy. 89% say they are enhancing internal goals, setting an accountability mechanism to promote readiness for more sustainability disclosure requirements. So it's Asia Pacific, which we are also part of that. And also from the public end, the 59% of Gen Zs and 60% of millennials say they are willing to pay more for sustainable products and services. So I would like that. Are you willing to pay more for sustainable products? Are you Gen Zs, right? Most of you might be Gen Zs, right? So are you willing to pay more for sustainable products? More sustainable products? No. So the people, that was proven through some surveys. So Sri Lanka, it might not be that extent, but that's how the demographics are changing because people are highly interested about the sustainable practices. The consumers are demanding. If we haven't addressed those, we will lose our market. People will not buy. Or if we are more sustainable, people willing to pay more. Right? For example, in some of the tourism sector, some of the hotel, people are going there and they are willing to pay more because they are having sustainable practices. So tourism is one of the key priority area in Sri Lanka, and a lot of foreigners are coming and they are demanding that. So that trend has already established. Right? So that's how the society is giving the pressure for the companies to comply with those. So that's why these reporting mechanisms came in. So in Sri Lanka, ESG is part of the code of best practices, the corporate governance issued by Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka is having a code of best practices, that book, which is you are taking that for open book material. At least you might have read it, so right. That's, you have to be there for financial reporting subjects, in some of these auditing subjects. The certain questions are coming because people, you have to read that. So that has one particular area on ESG. So that was there in 2013 onwards. That was there in 2013 onwards. This is not a new topic. Colombo Stock Exchange also published a sustainability reporting guide in 2018, now 2025. That's why these people are, the companies, the well recognized companies are reporting on sustainability. Then central bank, they issued a direction to banks to be more sustainable. They have issued a direction on sustainable financing activities. Bank to be ready with the sustainable products, greener projects, they should have to disburse money for that. Also, central bank recently put a sustainable roadmap, which they have given sort of timelines which the banks, the non-banking financial institutions to come up with. That's why we can see this sort of green bonds issuances, social bond issuances are coming through finance companies and the banks, large extent. Then Colombo Stock Exchange was amended to facilitate for GSS plus bonds, which I discussed. Also, every listed company should have a policy on ESG that has to be published in their website as well. So every company should have a policy on ESG, the environment, social governance. It's a mandatory requirement based on the Colombo Stock Exchange listing rules. And also the Sri Lankan companies are reporting based on the GRI standards, the various other standards about their sustainability results. And even some of the companies, the IFRS or the SLFRS 1 and S2 going to be mandated this year. But the last year also some of the companies, couple of companies have reported because they early adopted. So that interest is there. Especially though some of these green bond issuers, they have early adopted. So companies like the Dialogue, LB Finance, so a lot of other companies, they have early adopted because they are having that willingness to report their results. Right? So that is why we are talking about the sustainability reporting standards, which is called SLFRS S1 and S2. So financial reporting, what are the standards we are using? Sri Lanka accounting standards. So those are coming from international standards we are adopting locally. So those standards are set out. Who's the standard setter internationally for accounting standards? International Accounting Standards Board. Right? So they are putting up the IFRS accounting standards. In Sri Lanka, we are adopting as Sri Lanka accounting standards, LKSS and the SLFRS. Then the sustainability disclosure standards, again coming through the IFRS, but there's a separate separate standard setting body which is called International Sustainability Standards Board. So this standards setting body was established, that is to issue the sustainability disclosure standards, which in Sri Lanka we have adopted as the SLFRS S1 and S2. Right? So in Sri Lanka we are adopting SLFRS S1 and S2. So through these accounting standards, the ultimate output is financial statements. Financial statements. So what are the key elements of financial statements? What are the key elements of financial statements? What are the key elements of financial statements? What are the elements of financial statements? Yeah, income statement, statement of financial position, cash flow statement, changes in equity, notes to the financial statements, all the financial statements. So that's a final output which we are auditing and issuing audit opinion. Sustainability disclosures are coming through these sustainability standards. So nowadays most of the companies use the GRI standards, so that is not the S1 S2, that is another set of standards. But S1 and S2 are these standards set out by ISSB, which the sustainability disclosures are coming in, and ultimately these disclosures are to cater the information needs of the primary users of the financial statements. Who are the primary users of the financial statements? Under conceptual framework? Who? Investors, the potential investors, lenders and the creditors. So those are the primary users. So the sustainable disclosures are also for those primary users. The same set of people are looking into these disclosures, right? Okay. So in Sri Lanka, the CA Sri Lanka is adopting these standards, accounting standards and the sustainability disclosure standards. So accounting standards, the CA Sri Lanka is adopting with the recommendation of Accounting Standards Committee, which was established under the Accounting and Auditing Standards Act number 15 of 1995. The Accounting Standards Committee recommending for Council to adopt these accounting standards for Sri Lanka. But sustainability disclosure standards to separate committee was established in CA Sri Lanka, which is called Sustainability Disclosure Standards Committee. So the Sustainability Disclosure Standards Committee was specifically to adopt the Sustainability Disclosure Standards. So I am the alternate chair to that particular committee. So that committee, one is we are adopting the standard, and also when we are locally adopting, we know some of the companies having sort of challenges, so we are discussing with the companies and we have given some reliefs for the initial years. So locally we have done it. And also through the committee we are doing various awareness sessions. We are conducting a lot of awareness sessions because a lot of accountants don't have the required know-how about these sustainability related areas. So we have conducted multiple awareness sessions, and also in the future also we will conduct a lot of those awareness sessions for the benefit of the members and also for the society as well. So you should also sometimes, if you have the time, please attend those. So most of these sessions are free of charge. Even yesterday we had a session which is on the climate risk. So that was conducted through the committee. So you might be getting those e-flyers, so please register for that and attend. So this is the future which you need to be thorough about, especially the people who are in the business organizations, because these are coming through. So your board of directors, your senior management, you talk about these things. So you have to be thorough about. So if you become a chartered accountant and if you say you don't know anything about these, so that is, they will not accept. So you should have that knowledge, right? So these standards were set out like that. So last year the standards were set out, and through the committee, these standards, when we adopted, we mandated the top 100 listed companies in the Colombo Stock Exchange to adopt these standards from 1st January 2025 onwards. That means this year they should adopt these sustainability disclosure standards. That was put up in the listing rules of the Colombo Stock Exchange as well. So if the market capitalization of the company, based on that, if you are within the top 100, if your company is within the top 100, you should adopt this standard this year. Then the next year, the companies which are registered in the main board of the Colombo Stock Exchange, because there's another board called the Reserve Board. The people who have registered, the companies which have registered in the main board of the Colombo Stock Exchange, that is more than 100, so that company should adopt by 2026. 2027, all the listed companies should adopt this standard. They should report about their sustainability results. They should report about the environment, society, or what is applicable for them. Then 1st January 2028, the companies, the private sector companies also should adopt. If the company is having annual turnover exceeding 10 billion, that company should adopt this standard by 2028. By 2029, if a company's does 2 consecutive years annual turnover exceeding 5 billion, that company should adopt 2029. And 2030, this has to be adopted by all the specified business enterprises. So what are the specified business enterprises? Can you give examples for specified business enterprises? Do you know?
Insurance.
Yeah, insurance companies are part of that, but most of the insurance companies are listed companies, so they should anyway adapt by 2027. What else? The specified business enterprises. All the listed companies are also specified business enterprises. So what else? Yeah, finance companies. Then, sorry, leasing companies. Yes. What else? Banks. Those are specified. So most of the banks are also listed. So what about the Bank of Ceylon? Is it a listed one? Is Bank of Ceylon is a listed company? What do you think? Is Bank of Ceylon a listed company? What do you think? Bank of Ceylon? Is it a listed company? So go to CSE website and type Bank of Ceylon, whether it's appearing. Can you try? In your phone, go to CSE website and there's a search. Wow, something is there. Type whether Bank of Ceylon is appearing. Is Bank of Ceylon a listed one? Can you check? Just write CSC and go to that website. Is Bank of Ceylon? What do you think? Is it a listed company? It's not appearing. No. Just try. CSE website. This is not CSE website. CSE. Colombo Stock Exchange. What do you think? His name is there, right? Yeah. So Bank of Ceylon also a listed entity. How? How? Because its debentures are listed. Since Bank of Ceylon has issued listed debentures. This is very much relevant. You should know listed company. Especially auditors, we should know, because listed companies we should include what in our audit report? The key audit matters. If not, it's a violation. Sometimes we think these companies are not listed companies, but apparently they are listed because their debentures are listed. Right? Because that is a listed entity. So Bank of Ceylon also coming into here. All the listed companies by 2027 they have listed. Have this disclosure. But some of the other banks might not be listed. Then they should by 2030. Then what else? What else? Who are the other specified business enterprises? Any guesses? Sometimes these MCQ questions for corporate level financial reporting paper, and if you have done the past papers, I'm sure there are multiple questions asked about. Please identify the specified business, isn't it? Yes, there are questions. Then you should know. So what else? Unit trusts, specified business enterprises. Then Colombo Stock Exchange is also a specified business enterprises. CSE also special business enterprise. Then what about the government organizations? These government organizations which are providing goods or services. Government corporations which are providing goods or services are specified business enterprises. What are those? Can you name few? Government corporations which are providing key ones. linked to the sustainability or the environment. What are those? Ceylon Electricity Board, Water Board, those are part of this. Sri Lanka Refining Corporation, part of this. Now those companies have to report by 2030, but in case if any of those are meeting these threshold, 10 billion turnover, 5 billion turnover, they have to report in advance. Right? So those are the companies which coming into here. And also, even some of the private sector companies which have turnover is more than 500 million, if they are having employees more than 1000, so likewise there are certain criteria given in the gazette issued under this act, the Continental Act Act, so that company should follow the S1, S2, right? So that's a mandatory requirement because already these standards adopted. If any of your business organizations not aware about these things, please educate your senior management. This is a mandatory requirement coming in. And also the Sri Lanka Accounting and Auditing Standards Act going to be amended, and through that also this is going to be mandated for the companies to adopt. And so far the auditing is mandatory only on the financial aspects, but with this amendment we are expecting there's a probability is there to mandate the assurance on non-financial reporting aspect. So auditors will look into this information. So you should have more accurate information like what you are currently practicing for financial information. So that's why these standards have adopted. This is a mandatory requirement. So this is called SLFRS S1, SLFRS S2, only 2 standards so far, but we are expecting more standards to come. So that will come, S3, S4 likewise. So better to complete the CA, right? Early, otherwise you have to study S3, S4, S5 like that. So anyway, as the accountants, you cannot step this reading thing. Even you become a chartered accountant, you have to read. Because otherwise, when I'm doing the chartered, we didn't have S1, S2. But now I am talking about that because I had to learn it. I had to practice it. So once you become a member also, you have to be thorough with these things because the environment is so changing very frequently. New legislations coming in, new standards coming in, you have to be up to date. Right? That's how you can differentiate from others. That's how you can add a value to your business. Right? So that's the number one task which you have to do while you are studying for CA, but also became CA. Right. So SLFRS S1, I will come to this later. SLFRS S1 is like this conceptual reporting framework for financial reporting. So it's given certain basic principles. This conceptual framework for financial reporting, you heard about, right? Which talked about what are the qualitative characteristics, how the company should report, what are the key elements of the financial reporting. So those kind of key things, the principles are there in the conceptual framework. The similar way, for sustainability, the S1 is about the concepts, the key concepts. Is a foundational standard. So it's given all the principles, which other standards are formulating on top of that. So this standard has introduced 4 modules: governance, strategy, risk management, metrics and targets. So the company should report their sustainability disclosures based on those 4 areas: governance, strategy, risk management, metrics and targets. Governance is how their board of directors, senior management is looking into these sustainability related risks and opportunities. So through this standard, the company should identify the key sustainability risks coming to your company and the opportunities coming to your company. That means you have to identify, I have shown you in the very first slide, the sustainability related areas, the multiple areas are there. So out of that, you should identify which areas the risks are coming into my business. So you should have a registry which have to be updated. Then you have to update it every year because the business, the environment is changing. So with that, new risks are coming in. Sometimes some risks are not more relevant. Then you have to update it. Then this reporting also linked with these risks and opportunities. So under governance, the company should report how the board of directors of the company is looking into the sustainability related risks and opportunities. Are they really considering those in their board meetings? Have they given the power to monitor the company's performance in terms of sustainability more than the financial results? Is there a senior management who has appointed to take the ownership of these initiatives? So those are coming as governance part. Or whether when you are putting the board papers, are you embedding the sustainability related ones also into that board papers? Are we only considering about the financial results? So those kind of disclosures should come in into your annual report under governance. Then the strategy. Now we identify the risk and opportunities. What strategies are there in the company to address those risks and opportunities in the short term, medium term, and the long term? What kind of initiatives the company has taken? So that we have to disclose in our annual report. Then risk management. So we identify risks. How you manage those risks? Now mostly the companies are nowadays focusing on the financial risks. The risk coming through if the debtor has not paid, there's a risk coming to company. If the company's the liquidity position, if there's some issue, then that is a risk for the company. So those are the major areas which the companies are taking. But now with this standard, the boards asked to consider about more than that. To consider about the sustainability also part of your risk, because you have seen another 10 years time the number one risk will be on the climate change. So if the company has not considered those things in the business decision making process, the sustainability will be impacted. So you have to consider about that, right? So that's why the risk management practices also should improve to cater for this sustainability one. So that is also one element coming as a disclosure, how these risk management related activities you are taking into account the sustainability, right? Then the metrics and the targets. Now you can manage everything, you can come up with lots of strategies, but you have to monitor the progress. You have to come up with some KPIs, matrices, right? So a lot of matrices has to be come up. Maybe let's say in terms of the employee, the matrices might be on number of training hours, the turnover, employee turnover. So those might be some matrices. In terms of environment, your carbon footprint, the emissions coming from your business, right? So those kind of things are coming as part of your electricity consumption. So those kind of things are coming as matrices. So these standards are given sometimes. The S2 is having matrices on the climate, but other areas, there's another standards called sustainability accounting standards. The sustainability accounting standards has those matrices for each of the industries. So let's say if you are in the hotel industry, your matrices might not be suited for a finance company. So these SASB standards, which is called sustainability accounting standards, they have given some matrices, which has for each industry. They have identified various industries, which cover almost every industry, a dedicated matrix. So you have to identify the matrices to that and you have to report on that. So that has to be done. And once you report, you have to report with the comparatives also. So first year you don't need to report the comparatives, but the second year onwards you have to put the figures, the matrices, the results with the comparatives. Then once you put the comparatives, the people who are reading the report will compare. Have you performed well compared to the previous year. Likewise, now you are comparing your profits, whether the company profits has increased compared to last year, revenue has increased compared to last year. Similar way, in the once the companies publish the sustainability results, the people will compare whether your emission was increased or have you taken initiatives to reduce it. So pressure is coming because you have to report these ones, right? So the metrics and the targets. So government, I told, government has given a target. 2030, 70% of renewable energy, 2050 by carbon neutrality. So similar way, the company should also come up with targets to have the sustainable environment. And in terms of the employees, they have to come up with target. What should be our turnover? What should be the number of training hours? So likewise, some of the targets. So how many female board members should to be there in the board? So those kind of a target has to be come up because that's all of those are part and parcel of the sustainability. Then you have to report these ones annually. Annually, you have to publish these information with your annual report. It's mandated, right? So what are the key four modules coming under this one? Governance, strategy, risk management, metrics, and the targets. So you have to report the information based on those four areas. How frequently? Annually. So annually you should report. So nowadays also some of the companies are reporting. So please read the annual report of some of these early adopters. So I've named few, the Dialogue, FB Finance, then Alliance Finance. So those companies, please have a look. You can learn how the companies have presented those information in their annual report. Right? Okay. So that's about S1. S2, they are considering about specifically on the climate. Because that is the number one risk that every company has to face after another 10 years' time. So, in the climate risks, I mentioned now S1, we have to identify the risks for the company. So every sustainability topic which is material for you, you have to identify the material risk and opportunities, right? Then, under climate, the standard says you have to further segregate your climate risk into two areas, which is called physical risk and the transition risk. So climate related physical risk is, let's say, if the flood situation has happened, then your buildings of the company are impacted. So there's a physical risk coming into. And also there might be some transitional risks. What are the transitional risks? Now I said government has committed to have 2050 by carbon neutrality. So government might come up with various initiatives. Then some of the raw materials which we are currently using, we cannot use anymore. Some of the products of the company which we are producing at the moment, we may not be able to, we may not permitted to produce those things because those are harmful for the environment protection. So that's the transitional risk coming into play. If you are having more non-sustainable products, then you may have to stop. Then what about the machineries you are using for that to production purposes? We may have to impair those things. So no use. So those are the transitional risks coming into play. Right? Then the customer preferences are going to change. I said the millennials, Gen Zs are demanding more sustainable products. So if no demand for unsustainable ones, then you may not be able to produce it anymore because no demand. Right? So those are the transitional risks. So regulation changes, customer preferences changes, then technological changes, a lot of new technologies coming in to address the sustainable related concerns, then you have to adapt those things. So those are the transitional risks. So these risks you have to mention in your annual report. So if you are having any sort of raw materials, if those are not sustainable, then there's a higher chance those transitional risks are coming in. So that has to be disclosed in your annual report. Right. Then again, in terms of the governance, strategy, risk management, and the matrices, you have to put disclosures on how each of these aspects we are looking into the climate. Whether the board of directors are thinking about the climate change, whether discussions are happening on that. Have we identified any risks at the board level, senior management level? So that is to be disclosed. The strategies, if you have identified any impacts, what are the strategies? Mitigation strategies or the adaptation strategies what you are having? If you are doing some practices harmful to the environment, do you have any strategies to adapt, become more sustainable? If you are having impacts coming through the environment to your business, have you taken appropriate actions? Maybe you are in the agricultural industry, the weather pattern changes might have impact on your production. Then have you taken actions to mitigate those? So those are the strategies coming in. Then the risk management. The risk we identify, are we managing in the short term, long term, and the medium term? Then the matrices. So S2 has given some matrices for the companies to report, which is on the emissions part. Emissions coming through your businesses, which we are dividing into 3 categories, which is called scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 emission is the emission directly coming through your business operations. Scope 2 is, since you are using the electricity, there's an emission coming through for the electricity generation. So that is impact. Scope 3 is about the emission coming through your entire value chain. So that's why I said, if you are a supplier for a company who's reporting under S1 or S2, then since they need to report about the emission coming through the entire value chain, they will ask the information from your entity to provide. Some of these companies have even educating their suppliers about these S1 and S2. Because you might not be a specified business enterprises, but even a small scale company which provides the raw materials for a company which is a listed company or a specified business enterprises, they will surely ask this information because you need to report about the emission coming through with the entire value chain. So if you are not sustainable, they will reject your product. Even now, when we are providing some sort of, if we are bidding for some of these RFPs given by some of the companies in Sri Lanka, they are asking about our sustainable practices. If Deloitte is bidding for one engagement, they are asking what are the sustainable practices in place in your organization. Because they are, when they are screening the suppliers, when they are evaluating the suppliers, they are assessing the compliance with the sustainable practices. Because that is key evaluation which these people are doing. Otherwise, you cannot provide your supplies because they have to ultimately report that in the annual report. And if their emission is increasing, their investors will question. So because of that, they have to ensure your entire value chain is sustainable. So that pressure will come. This is more than the reporting. So you have to keep ready, and you have to, as the accountants, you should keep your board, the senior management also about the importance of these particular standards. And because it's more than the reporting standards, you have to report, and also you should have to establish some of the practices within your organization. Right. Now, with that, you will have more connected not only the financial information, sustainability information in your annual report, and also your reporting will on the short term, medium term, long term. It discuss about your future strategies, what you are going to take, the risk coming into organizations, more forward looking, because financial results are more historical. That was done But the sustainability information also talking about the future, the impacts which are coming into the business and how we are going to address those. And also, if a company does not have the adequate skills, you can also say like we don't have that skills, and you can get some exemptions on the disclosures. But that might not be practiced for everything, because some of the key highly technical areas you may be able to get the relief, but at least the key things you have to disclose. Also, the very first 2 years, the institute has given some exemptions where first 2 years of adoption, first year you don't need to report about the comparative, that is for the first year. But the second year onwards, you have to report the comparatives. The first year, also when you are issuing the sustainability information and the financial information, I said that has to be go through the annual report at a one time. But very first year, you can defer it for maximum of 9 months, which you can publish first your financial results, and after 9 months, maximum within 9 months, you are permitted to issue the sustainability disclosures, but that is only for the very first year. Second year onwards, your financial information and the sustainability information has to be produced within a single time. Then first year, you can adopt only the S2. So S2, you can limit your adoption only to S2 in the very first year. You need to adopt S1 and S2 both. That is only for first year. Then greenhouse gas emissions, I said the emissions are quantified based on another standards called GHG protocol. So that's the standards given. Even the institute has conducted few awareness sessions on these particular standards, because these things are much not familiar for accountants. So you have to quantify the emissions. So there are some formulas given in this standard. So that has to be adopted for the reporting. But if a company has different practices, they can go with that in the first 2 years. Also, the disclose scope 3, that is the emission coming from your entire value chain, you no need to disclose in the very first 2 years. So those are some of the reliefs given in the standard. Even the last year, before the last exam, the strategic level, the financial reporting, this is one of the question asked. What are the reliefs given on the standard? Because you should know these things, especially the reliefs, because this is a mandatory one. If your company is not prepared, you can at least use these exemptions to be prepared in another 2 years' time. You have to adapt based on the timeline given, but you can also use these exemptions, right? So it is a challenge for a company, because you might not have the adequate information at the moment, because we think about only the financial results. And so the key challenge is most of the companies, they haven't think about the sustainability. So because of that, they don't have the information. So once you adapt, you have to be ready with the information, the data. So that's why you should bring this message to your organizations and to say if sometimes your clients, make them aware this requirement is coming, is keep this data ready. Though the data is available, the question is whether the accuracy, whether the information is correct. So you have to have some controls in place to review those and approve those information, like in the financial information. So that's how the challenge is coming in. Because mostly it says difficulty to measure the environmental impact. It's too costly sometimes. Focus on near term, mostly some of the investors locally. So those kind of issues are coming in. And lack of political support, insufficient supply of low emission inputs. So a lot of issues are there, the companies have to face, but we are in the journey, the first year. So you have to address these concerns. So how you can contribute? You can understand the requirements, and you can raise the awareness among your colleagues. These standards are coming in, and we have to be ready with that. And also you can help out the management to come up with these matrices based on SSB standard, and you can help out to track those performances. You can maybe become the sustainability champions. With this standard, you can keep your teams aware about these things. And also, it is a compliance requirement, it's a mandatory requirement. If not, your company will not comply with the requirement given. So that is become an uncompliance. To avoid, you have to raise again the awareness. And also you can also help through these disclosures to identify the areas where the improvements are required. If the company is not concerned about the environment, now you can ask them to take the actions because those are going to be in your report. If they are not thinking about the human capital, you can ask your HR team to take the actions because that is going to be reported. So that's the importance of this one, the key challenge. And also the scope 3, which I think said about the value chain, that again a challenge for the first year. So that's why the institute has given the 2 years exemption period, which coming through 15 different categories, which is coming through the value chain. So that's why this one was given. So that's how the standards was done, and you should be the champions to introduce these standards for your own companies. So my ask is to read these requirements. So listen to a lot of awareness sessions are conducted by the institute. So that is part and parcel your course materials, textbooks, your syllabus. So please be aware about the sustainability reporting, the non-financial reporting. Not because it is part of your syllabus, but as the accountants you should know, because your businesses will be impacted through the sustainability risk and opportunities. So that's why we have this discussion today on the sustainability. Do you have any questions? So always it's 5 o'clock, so no one will ask. So if you have any questions, you can connect me offline. Okay, so thank you very much, one for the training division for inviting for this wonderful discussion today. And also thank you very much for your participation.